Welcome to The Explainer. So today, we're diving straight into the mind of a writer who completely revolutionized how we talk about romance. Forget that stuffy, boring image you might have of a 17th century poet. We're talking about John Donne, a true master of what we call the metaphysical conceit. See, instead of relying on tired cliches like "your eyes are like stars" or "love is a red rose," Donne created these incredibly elaborate, intellectual, and honestly completely unexpected comparisons to explain the deepest human emotions. He didn't just write love poems, he built entire intellectual universes out of them.
Okay, let's dive into this bizarre but brilliant question. How exactly do you map a teardrop? I mean, it's a weird thing to ask, right? But it's exactly the kind of unexpected riddle Donne wants us to solve. He plunges us instantly into this highly analytical, endlessly fascinating world where the line between cold, hard science and intense, burning passion is completely erased.
A geometric drawing compass? A teardrop globe? A spider's web? Not exactly your standard Valentine's Day symbols, are they? But that is the absolute genius of John Donne. He takes these ordinary, sometimes even grotesque everyday objects and turns them into the most profound expressions of love, fidelity, and the human soul you'll probably ever hear. We're going to break down exactly how he pulls off these literal literary magic tricks.
Let's jump right into Act 1, Defending the Rebellion of Love.
We're starting off by looking at how Donne flips the script on his critics in his famous poem, The Canonization. Just listen to this abrupt, incredibly forceful opening line. You can literally hear the exasperation here. The speaker is basically shouting at a critic or a friend who keeps interfering in his relationship, telling them to go worry about something else like his gray hairs or going out to get a real job at court, basically saying, just leave us alone.
Donne argues that his love poses absolutely no danger to society. It doesn't cause wars, it doesn't spread disease, and it certainly doesn't bankrupt anyone. Instead, this love is so pure and so intensely focused that it actually elevates the lovers to a holy status. They aren't just a couple, they are worthy of canonization, meaning they are the true saints of love, setting the ultimate pattern for all future generations to follow.
And this brilliantly illustrates how the lovers' bond solves an ancient mythological riddle. He compares them to the phoenix, the mythical bird that dies in fire and is magically reborn from its own ashes. By abandoning the superficial world, the lovers merge into one neutral thing, completely transcending traditional roles. They die to the world, sure, but they rise reborn, utterly transformed and immortalized by this perfect unified love.
So they've achieved this perfect, immortal union. Great. But, reality always sets in. What actually happens when this quote-unquote perfect union is threatened by physical separation? When one of them actually has to pack up and leave?
Which brings us to Act 2, The Art of Saying Goodbye.
This is where Donne tackles the really painful, inevitable reality of parting. In A Valediction, Forbidding Mourning, valediction just meaning a farewell, Donne tells his wife that they really shouldn't make a huge public scene when he travels. He contrasts their bond with what he calls dull sublunary lover's love. That's the earthly, unrefined love that relies entirely on physical presence. For ordinary lovers, absence destroys the relationship because it removes the physical elements that built it. But our speaker's love is refined, purified, and interassured of the mind. Physical absence, it just isn't a threat to them. Because their souls are unified into one, his departure isn't a breach or a break at all. He uses this incredibly beautiful metaphor of gold. Gold is super malleable, right? You can beat it out into a sheet so incredibly thin, it's almost invisible, but it never actually snaps. And that is exactly what distance does to their soul. It doesn't sever it, it just stretches it out across the miles.
So the crucial point is set up right here with what is perhaps the greatest and most intricate metaphysical conceit ever written. If you really must think of them as two separate souls, Donne says, then think of them as the two legs of a geometric drawing compass.
The beloved is the fixed foot of the compass. She sits securely in the center. But when the speaker, the moving foot, travels far away, she subtly leans and hearkens after him. Her firmness and her deep spiritual constancy are literally the only things that allow the speaker to draw a perfect circle, guiding him on his journey and ensuring that he will eventually end up exactly where he began, back home with her.
Now, Donne doesn't always advocate for a quiet, spiritual goodbye.
In another poem, A Valediction of Weeping, he abandons that calm farewell entirely and instead leans into this dramatic, overwhelming flood of emotion where tears literally have the power to metaphorically drown the entire world. In this one, he compares a single tear to a blank round globe. Just like a workman maps out continents and oceans to create a perfect representation of the earth, the speaker's tears reflect the face of his beloved. And because she is his entire world, her reflection transforms that single tiny drop of water into a complete, massive universe.
Each tear becomes a microcosm of their love. But there is a huge danger here. The speaker begs his beloved not to cry too. If she weeps, her tears, which she compares to a powerful moon drawing up the seas, will mix with his. And by doing so, she'll literally drown the reflection of their shared world in a devastating flood of sorrow. It's just a breathtaking way to show how intensely interconnected their emotions really are. Moving on to our final act, Act 3, Immortalizing the Beloved. We've seen how they part, but now let's explore how ideas actually outlast physical absence. In A Valediction of My Name in the Window, the speaker actually scratches his name into a pane of glass before he leaves. It sounds a bit like vandalism, but it was a common practice back then. Donne, of course, elevates it. He tells her that this name etched in the window is a visible proxy for his soul. It's the outward fashion of an incredibly deep inner reality.
Let's move to and see how this builds, because it is wild. He first compares the scratched name to a spider leaving its essence in a web, meaning his presence remains active even when he's gone. Then he elevates it even further. The name actually becomes a holy relic, a sacred object meant to be adored, kissed, and kept with literal religious veneration. By leaving his name, he's clarifying that he isn't grieving the separation at all. Instead, he feels joy. He is joyfully entrusting his essence, his very identity, deeply into her faithful heart. She becomes the ultimate guardian of this treasure, and her constant devotion will keep his name shining and at rest until he finally returns. Finally, we transition to a valediction of the book. Here, the metaphor shifts yet again. It's not about a name on a window anymore. The beloved herself becomes the ultimate, profound text that holds all the mysteries of the universe. The poem references a time before the fall of humanity, back when there was a primal, unified knowledge of the world, a single book containing the universal alphabet. Obviously, humanity lost that. The world shattered into confusing fragments and broken laws. However, the speaker claims that he has actually found all those lost, scattered fragments perfectly reassembled within his beloved.
For Donne, she is the only actual reality. He boldly states that anything in the world that is separate from her is just a mere map or plan, just an abstract, empty representation. She's the substance. To read her, to truly understand her, is to unlock the very secrets of existence and all universal truth.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the core takeaway from all these poems. You might think that applying geometry, cartography, and ancient mythology to love would make it feel cold, maybe a bit academic? But Donne proves the exact opposite. By forcing us to intellectualize love, he actually heightens the emotional stakes. He shows us that love isn't just a fleeting feeling in your chest. It's a massive, cosmic force that literally requires the entire universe to explain it.
So we end with this final provocative thought. By using these brilliant conceits to turn physical absence into spiritual expansion and fleeting tears into complete worlds, did John Donne create the ultimate cheat code for eternity? It's honestly incredible to think how a 17th century poet's wildly complex metaphors still map so perfectly onto the human heart today. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I hope it leaves you seeing the world, and maybe even a simple teardrop, just a little differently.